Tonight on The Reno Show, I'm going to be showing you how to use space medicine to connect with your buyers. Leading real estate agent Mark Cantwell is here to help you survive an auction, and Rowan is back to help you with step heights and depths. And our expert gardener Aaron will be showing you how you can revive those dying agapanthus in your yard. Hello, Naomi here, and today I want to dive a little bit deeper into connecting with your target buyers. So you've got your target market down pat. You can already see it. Maybe it's Connie and Adam cooking in a large updated kitchen with their 3 kids playing in the new outdoor entertaining area. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and the profits from your renovation are in your pocket. Awesome. So you've planned this out. You've planned out the physical space. You know the exact finishes you're going to be adding, and you've got plenty of solid ideas of how your ideal buyers will be using the space you've updated. Amazing. But what about the feel of the place? Have you thought about how the space will make people feel? Will they get emotionally attached to it? You know what? It is true. You shouldn't get emotionally attached to a place, but what you want is for a potential buyer to get hooked on it. Because when you make that emotional connection, you make that sale price at the end exactly what you want. So, what does this all come down to? Space medicine. What on earth is space medicine? And what does space medicine have to do with renovating? Great questions. Yep, I know it sounds like something completely sci-fi from a sci-fi movie, but I promise I haven't been like kooking out and watching a pile of Star Trek episodes. And yep, if you Google it, the first definition that you're going to see is something that comes up with astronauts practicing medicine in outer space, but it really has nothing to do with outer space doctors, drugs, or surgery. I may have a background in medical science, but I'm not expecting you to. Space medicine is pretty much the magic ingredient that you need to get your renovation space to connect with your buyers on an emotional level. And you know what? Even on a subconscious level, it is the key to your buyer's subconscious. Still confused? Okay, let me explain a little further. So, your surroundings have a huge impact on your happiness. If you're sitting at your work in a tiny cubicle with grey walls and grey carpet and grey chairs, it can make you feel pretty gloomy, right? And if the windows look out on other grey buildings that block all the natural sunlight, that just add to your gloom, that sounds pretty depressing, right? On the other hand, if your office is full of open spaces and vibrant pops of the right colours and indoor plants everywhere, your mood is automatically lifted from being surrounded by a pleasant environment. You feel more energised and in turn more productive. It is a win-win situation. So, the exact same thing applies at home. You want your place to be inviting, with plenty of natural light filtering through, yet warm at the same time, with earthy wood tones. You want to be able to come home from a hard day's work to your perfect refuge. And that's what space medicine is all about. It's about adding the right colour, the right light, and creating the right layouts that will set off the feeling of good chemicals in your brain and your body, as well as the brains and bodies of the buyers. So yes, there's an absolute science behind space medicine, but you don't need to don your white coat and become a psychology or physiology expert. Connecting with your buyers on an emotional level can be achieved through simple space medicine principles. And you can use these principles of space medicine to connect with your potential buyers on that deeper level. It is so important to do that because they will feel an attachment without them even knowing. And that attachment is what will drive up your sale price and in turn, your profits. One of the biggest ways to connect with people through your renovation project is by using nature as an inspiration. And that is a key element to space medicine. That doesn't mean you plant a forest in your backyard or you have a pond streaming through the middle of your living room. It's not about converting the space into an aviary or making everything in the house wood. What you should be doing is adding elements, textures and finishes to your renovation space that are associated with nature. And there are three main ways that you can do that. You can use natural elements and materials. So connecting with nature is a main principle, and this is one of the ways that you can do it. So you can do this by using natural products to accent your property. Do you brainstorm all of the natural materials you can think of, right? So let's brainstorm wood, stone, marble, leather, cotton. All of these are natural materials which you can then use in your renovations. The next thing you can do is actually create a connection with nature by using the colours of nature inside your property. So that's the second way that you can connect your property with nature, which in turn induces space medicine. And the third way that you can create that connection with nature is by using the appropriate amount of natural light. So it's all about finding that perfect balance between connecting with nature and being practical. As long as you choose materials that reflect a particular style you're going to be going for, you'll be well on your way to using space medicine to connect with your target market. So don't fall into the trap of using natural or natural looking materials and finishes just for the sake of the natural look. Remember to keep your overall strategy in mind and the end buyers in mind and choose natural elements that will connect with the rest of the house. Happy renovating. Tonight we have with us Mark Cantwell on the couch. You've seen him many times before. He's one of my favourite guests. He's the principal at PRD Nationwide, Newcastle and Lake Macquarie. And today we're talking about a bit of a contentious issue, some may say. There's a bit of bad press that can sometimes get around about auctions. Okay. So the things that I hear a lot from people about auctions are, what if it doesn't sell? Or from a buyer's perspective, I don't want to do a pest and building if I'm nowhere near the mark. If my first bid's going to be like 500 below the next bid. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff that people are shying away from and they prefer what some might say is a little traditional sort of private treaty way.
Sure.
So how can you help people with this? How can you help us with this one,
Well,
MK?
they're real things that are going on in a buyer's mind. Like, first of all, we need to say buying and selling a property to someone who hasn't done a lot of it, it's a big deal regardless of the sale method.
Correct.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in private treaty in the industry, and I'm not saying that it's a common thing, but there's enough out there to create fear amongst buyers, even buying through private treaty.
Okay.
So we just need to acknowledge...
either way, it's a big step.
It's a big step regardless.
Okay.
I suppose what traditional auctions, as in the original form of auction, have turned buyers away from, again, like you said, spending money to get ready and then it's way over their head on price.
Yeah, so they've done a pest, a building, a survey, a bank, a vow maybe,
Yep.
and then they've gone through all the finance and they've literally had to tell everyone what they've had for breakfast,
Yep.
and then they get there and they're not even in the race.
That's right. So we went into research mode in like 06, 07, when auctions were sort of starting to get stronger again in Sydney.
Yep.
And we went across the country and we said, well, leading agents across the country are using auction, but certain agents aren't using it. Why aren't they using it?
Fair call.
And they weren't using it because they found they got resistance from buyers.
Okay.
And then if the buyers boycotted the auction, their seller didn't get a great price.
Yes.
So we said, okay, other than the booming markets, how can we get auction to be available to more agents and buyers and sellers?
And I guess more accepted.
And more accepted. So we created a system called Friendly Auctions.
Okay, tell me about that.
And it's being used now in Australia, across the country, New Zealand.
Nice.
And soon to be in the States.
I like the word friendly before auction.
Yeah,
Makes me feel a bit better about it.
It's like, really, what's friendly about it? So we get to explain that, okay, the seller pays for all the pest reports, building reports, surveys and the like.
Okay.
Strata reports. Now, they have to be from a neutral inspector that's willing to sign it into the buyer's name. So there needs to be a legal document on the front to say that this is how we're going to transfer it.
So it's not just like me getting my friend Bobby to do a building inspection on my place and saying everything's great.
No, absolutely not. They're going to prepare it the same for a buyer and a seller because they're the ones that are going to be dragged over the coals with all their insurance if there's a problem with it.
Okay, so independent building inspection, independent pest.
Paid for by the owner. So everyone's reading from the same sheet of paper. They can still get their own if they want, but they don't need to. Over 90% of our buyers that bid at our auctions rely on the reports that are there, and they get them transferred in their name at the end just like they bought it.
Okay.
They can also talk to the inspector on the way through just like they booked that inspector.
Okay, so it's accessibility.
Absolutely. Secondly, more transparency around price.
Okay.
Now there's some states that have decided it's a great idea not to talk price at all in auctions. I'm not really on board with that strategy, but that's the rule. So Queensland, for example, can't talk price with auctions.
As a buyer, that just makes me want to run for the hills. There's nothing friendly about that.
Yeah, so we don't really have a lot of friendly auctions going on in Queensland because we can't work with their legislation. So in Queensland, you just get a sheet of sales sometimes and you go and work it out for yourself.
Okay.
It is a bit of a hassle. I'm not going to go into that. It's too much of a deep dive. But transparency around price, a range of no more than 10% is now legislated in some states. And that range...
What do you mean by that?
So New South Wales brought in some rules after the booming markets that they had seen that an agent can't quote an owner a range of wider than 10% of their estimate.
Okay.
And you can't quote to the buyers any lower than the estimate you've given the owner.
Okay. So you can't
underquote. Yeah, underquoting was a big thing. Now, it certainly wasn't a practice that we did, but I know a lot of agents did throughout different parts of the country. And when I say a lot of it, it might have been less than 1%, but it was enough to create consumer
complaints.
complaints.
Well, there's a lot of agents.
That's right.
So 1% is a lot of people.
50,000
Really?
agents. Yeah, in Australia.
Okay.
So by having transparency around price, here's the sales that compare on attributes. Here's what's sold recently.
Apples with apples.
Let's have a talk about these properties. Where do you see value? Okay, you're still in the range. I'm going to let you know if it's moving way over your head. But if you're still competitive coming into the auction, I'm going to tell you you're in the running.
Yep.
Then you work out where you want to go as your max.
Okay.
Flexibility on terms is a big thing. So, you know...
See, that's actually counterintuitive to me because traditionally auctions have felt like there's no flexibility on terms.
Exactly. So friendly auctions are about having sensible flexibility. So it's still got no cooling off period at the auction.
Well, it's an auction.
You can't have them pull out and then the underbidder like goes and buys something else and then you've got no auction.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's got to be unconditional. But the deposit payable on the night or the day, does it really need to be 10% exactly?
Yes.
Or can it just be a large sum of money between 5 and 10% that's pre-agreed?
Yes.
And then they're still owing the rest of it within a couple of days afterwards.
And because, you know, that's really interesting. I have lots of students around the country that will say to me, how do I know how much to take? Because I don't know how much I'm going to buy it for.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, they've told me I need exactly 10%. So do I have to like have 50 grand or 55 grand or 60 or 62 grand in my pocket?
Yeah.
So that's actually common sense.
Yeah, and there's some more payment systems coming out now, like Deft Pay and stuff like that, where you can actually pay on the spot, you know, with a direct transfer that's actually recognised, because previously an internet transfer wasn't recognised on the day. So around flexibility on terms with deposit, but also settlement. So if we can allow a buyer to bid on a property at say $2 million, and they've got a house worth say $1 million, that's going to sell in about 4 weeks, and it's a popular market. If they can get 4 months settlement, it gives them time to get their house ready, get it on the market, get it sold, and get it settled.
So there doesn't have to be that fear going into the auction that, oh my gosh, if I actually get that, I'm then only going to have like 4 weeks or 5 weeks or even at max 6 weeks. And people are going, oh my gosh, I've got to get my house on the market, but I don't want to put mine on until I get that.
Yeah.
And so it's an egg, chicken, chicken, egg. So you've actually, in doing that, the friendly auction has helped dispel some of the fear, the big F word.
It's allowing more to participate.
Yep.
And the owner of the home gets another bidder or 2 bidders, which pushes the price up anyway. So they're getting a more accurate assessment of the market because they've got everyone in the game.
And I think the big thing for me, which I know we've talked about heaps, is the transparency around it.
Definitely.
So you never, the amount of times I'll have, you know, one of my mentoring clients come to me and say, the agent said this about the price, should I believe them? And so there is literally pure transparency because you're in the room.
If you're in the room, like, so we do a lot of in-rooms auctions. There's a bit more privacy for the owner. The buyers are seeing what's going on. You're seeing other auctions take place. It's not as much street theatre, but even with the
street theatre.
Well, that's what's often called. Like the on-site ones, like throughout Melbourne, they're great to go and watch, but they've got different rules there. Like you can go and bid in Melbourne without having registered, whereas in New South Wales you've got to register.
Yes.
And a lot of our owners prefer in-rooms because it's more private for them. If the deal gets a bit sticky and it's almost done, instead instead of everyone getting restless and wanting to go home, the auctioneer having to leave, you start another auction, you keep working on that auction, and you bring it back on the floor when it's close or ready to go.
So really, this is the 101 of why people don't have to be that frightened if they're going into a friendly auction.
Definitely. I'd encourage agents across Australia to adopt friendly auctions. I've written a book on it. You can have all the IP, there's audio.
Where's the book?
Friendlyauctions.com.au, pretty sure.
I don't see one on the coffee table.
Well, I didn't know I was going to be doing an endorsement.
Oh my gosh.
It's from the Real Estate Academy. It's been fully published and edited, and that was in 2015, and a lot of the principles are still the same.
And you know what, dare I say it, it might be a nice thing for those people that are going, wow, I totally would buy or I would sell at auction if I could do it in a friendly way. Ask your agent.
Yeah, start putting a little bit of consumer pressure on the agent to say, hey, have you got pest and building reports that are assignable?
Yes.
Will you give me a long settlement? If I pay even a little bit of interest after the normal settlement date, at least then I'm not going to have to go and get a bridging loan straight away.
Absolutely.
It's only if my house doesn't sell, but I'm getting a long time to do it.
Yeah.
You know, the owner can still say yes or no, but it's opening up the discussion.
So really, you're saying that as a consumer, as a buyer and as a seller, you do have power in the auction setting.
Definitely. Well, you've got, as an owner, you're getting to read the market before you have to decide on your reserve price.
Yep.
So you get 4 to 6 weeks worth of marketing, and then you say, right, that sounds like a reasonable figure based on what I'm reading. As a buyer, you're getting time and you're getting feedback from the agent. You're watching things go on. You're seeing how other buyers come and go. You've got time to come back with your inspector. Yep. So there's more prep time. Like in some private treaties, you come on day one, they're like, we've got 3 offers. Yeah, we've got 3 offers. Well, what are the offers?
You get a call that night saying, there's an offer, are you going to top it?
Yeah, and like, what's the offer? How do I know it's an offer? What are their terms?
See, that's what I always get asked. How do I know if there is another offer?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Even though I didn't know you'd written a book on it, and it's not on the coffee table, but I might get it under this Christmas tree this year if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I think this is a really great step into helping people buy and sell property in a way that is actually exceptional. Mm-hmm. And so let's all move to friendly auctions. Let's all go grab Mark's book. Not that I knew you had it, but it's amazing. Go grab it. Maybe drop it in. If you're a renovator that does lots of renovating work and your agent that you're working with doesn't do friendly auctions, maybe you could buy him a copy of Mark's book. Drop it into his office.
Absolutely. Happy to provide it.
Thanks so much, MK.
Thank you.
See you guys. Now, have you ever walked up a set of stairs and thought to yourself, that feels a little odd. What feels so odd about the set of stairs? Now, the reason it probably feels odd when you're walking up a set of stairs every now and then is maybe they're varying their heights and their step depths just a little. So some of you are maybe going, are you serious? We're talking about, what do you call it?
Rise and going.
Rise and going. We're talking about rise and going today because there are actually some guidelines, I think you would say, I won't say rules, there are some guidelines around how deep your stairs should be and how high, or I guess the depth or the height of each step to make it safe and simple for people to go up and down. And the reason that some stairs feel odd is you are so used to every day walking up very similar sized step heights and treads. So here to tell us more about it is Rowan, expert chippy and tradie. So tell us about this. Why? Well, first of all, why do we have them? Is it as simple as safety?
Well, yes, partly it's safety, it's ergonomics as well. Like over a period of time, we figured out the things that work best for us as far as distances, most comfortable egress and access for people, dealing with people which might have limited movement and capabilities but are still capable of using staircases. But it all comes down to amenity and safety, basically, in the end. So
okay, so if I decide I'm going to build a deck, because I like a bit of deck action.
Yes, we all like a deck.
We do like a deck, and I'm like, oh, a little bit high to let the kids jump off the end, just that little bit high.
Slightly over a metre is what you mean, yes?
Well, even if it's below a metre. Slightly is an ever so grey term, and I need to whack in a set of stairs.
Yes.
So I'm going to need to know things like, for the height, how many stairs I need to put in, and how far, like what gradient I can have on those stairs, and how deep my treads need to be. Now, I do have no shoes on, but one thing I am going to say is I've got a size 11 foot, and so there's nothing worse than walking on skinny treads for me.
Yeah.
Shallow treads. I bump my toes, and if I've got heels on, my heels fall off the end.
I know that feeling so well.
Those heels you wore today, I tell you.
It's always good going up, coming down, shocking.
It's a nightmare. You can actually tumble down.
I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So he feels my pain, even if his feet are probably smaller
I don't
than
have
mine.
my heels on at the moment, but yeah, I know exactly
Good
what
job.
you're saying.
So what do we need to know? If we're going to whack up a set of stairs, or someone's going to do it for us and we just want to know that it's right, what do we need to know about these regulations?
Okay, so they need to be, well, let's establish first a flight of stairs is 2 to 18 steps in a flight.
Okay.
If there's a single step, that's not referred to as a flight of stairs, that's just a step.
Step.
Okay, so in order to comply, each step needs to be the same dimension, so the same rise and the same going.
So you can't just suddenly change it halfway
Yeah,
up the stairs.
you can't have one step at this height and then the next one this height. That's a recipe for disaster. Because you know yourself, as you go up a set of steps,
You're
not
just
looking,
routining.
you're just routining.
Yep.
So yeah. And I'm sure everyone's done it as well before they've gone down, got to the last step, from the step to the ground, and it's a different height than all the rise. And you stumble. It
Each
trips
and
you
every
up all the
time.
time. It's really dangerous stuff, guys. So if we can make them uniform, we can comply. Okay. So in order to make them uniform, there's a set of tolerances that we work within, basically. So the height of each step, or the rise, which is basically the difference from the surface of one step to the surface of the next step.
So top to top.
Top to top has to be within 115 and 190 millimeters.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the standard rise.
All right.
And then when we talk about the going, so this is the depth of the step.
To fit my size 11s on.
Yes, so from the nosing of the stair to the vertical point of the next nosing above it.
Okay.
Not the full width of the stair, but to where the actual next nosing starts above it.
Yep.
That's called the going. And that has to be between 240 millimeters and 355 millimeters. Okay.
So you've got a bit of room to move there.
There's a lot of room to move there, okay? But one of the big things about stairs is if you're going to have them open, so there's no toe plate
Yes.
between steps.
Yes, great for people like me.
Yeah, that's right. You need to make sure that you can't fit a spherical object, a ball, essentially of 125 millimeters in diameter.
So basically your rise, if you're using open treads, needs to be no higher than 125
Well, no,
mil.
your rise can go up to 190, which you've already established,
Yep.
but you need to block between the bottom of the step and the top of the next step
Yep.
with something, a piece of timber, to make sure that that gap is no
Okay.
greater than 125. So we're talking about children here. We're talking about toddlers and stuff falling through
Falling
stairs.
through the
Okay,
stairs.
so we essentially they've worked out that the average head diameter of a small child is about 125 millimeters. So that's what we're working on. Okay.
Okay.
So if we can fall within those tolerances, and then there's a 2 rise plus a going equation, that tolerance that you can fit in.
Wow.
But basically what you need to know is that your stairs need to be between 20 and 45 degrees on gradient. Okay?
Okay.
Above 45 degrees is deemed a ladder, and below 20 degrees is basically a ramp. So, so those are the important things to bear in mind. Width also comes into play when you're dealing with inside Class 1 buildings.
Yep.
So we're talking about no less than 600 millimeters between handrails. And I think it's 500, I have to check, it's 550, I think, between stringers.
Okay.
But also, I should mention that if you buy pre-manufactured stringers, which you can
Yep.
get off the shelf at most hardware
Absolutely.
stores, they're pretty much set up good to go. So all you really need to figure out is the distance from whatever landing you're working from to finished ground level.
Yep.
And then you can take that measurement into your hardware store and they'll give you a set of stringers that'll match that.
And I think it's always important to say, like, that's phenomenal information. So people need to think about, they need to think about the height, they need to think about the depth, and they need to think about, obviously, any gaps in their stringers.
That's right.
Any gaps in their treads.
Yep, and if you're dealing with an internal staircase as well, you need to think about non-slip as well. So you need to have a non-slip surface, at least like
On the front edge.
On the front edge, some sort of stick-on non-slip surface, or you need to have there's a gauge of slipperiness as well that you need to comply with.
That's a
as well.
technical word.
Yeah, slipperiness.
Slipperiness.
Yes.
And most importantly, one thing I notice so much about our codes in our country, it can vary at any time.
Absolutely.
Like literally, by the time this goes to air, it could have varied.
It could have.
So it's really, really important that if you're going to undertake, especially a massive flight of stairs inside, or even a smaller flight of stairs outside, to make sure not only that they're compliant and you're keeping yourself safe from any form of litigation, but also so they're safe for you and the family or the people that the house are having. Make sure that you check your legislation each time, because these things do change as new legislation is passed and as new guidelines put in place. So make sure you keep on to them. But this is a great start to understanding the anatomy of a staircase.
That's
so
exactly
thanks.
right. No worries.
Top quick tip, team. So if you're ever looking to drop sheet some of your furniture, like you don't need to move everything out of a room when you need to paint or make it over. But key tip is that naturally a beautiful thick drop sheet, it is fabric. It can have some rough edges and it can also allow sometimes just a little bit of dust to permeate. So what I like to do is pop a plastic drop sheet on top of my furniture. It is a smooth, glossy finish naturally, so when a beautiful big heavy drop sheet comes in and secures down on it, there's no scratching on any of my furniture and there's no possible chance of any dust getting through. Top tip. We're back with Aaron Simpson from Green Envy to talk about how we can renovate, revive, or maybe need to replace what's going on in this agapanthus bed. Agapanthus are like used everywhere in our country, right?
They are.
Absolutely everyone, I think, has a bed of agapanthus.
They're the go-to plant.
They are the go-to plant because technically you can't kill them. However, something's gone on here.
You can make them very sad.
Yeah, these ones are very sad. Look, they're like, it's, you know, it looks like the bulb part of it's hanging out at the bottom. It's all thatched up. And they like, yeah, let's not go on. What do we need to do? Everyone can see how sad and sorry these poor agapanthus are. What do we do?
We've got a couple of things going on here, Naomi.
Okay, number one, what's happening?
Number one, we've got a very narrow garden bed.
Yes.
So a narrow garden bed for any type of plant doesn't give it a lot of feeding space or watering space or anything like that. So
and I guess they're competing with the lawn if they come too close.
certainly does. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
nasty, greedy lawn.
these agapanthus seem to have used up all the soil and all the nutrients they've got here. I think they're going to have been here for a good while.
Maybe 10 years.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
So about that sort of time frame. So you've got a couple of choices with agapanthus.
Okay.
You know, like you suggested before, do you replace them and do something different? Because now we've got an established garden around it, and should we put something else in that's going to enhance it?
Like
different?
grass it to the wall?
Could grass to the wall, because the other plants are starting to make a bit more of a feature here now. So
Yep.
these probably aren't doing what they used to do to soften this edge. Your second choice obviously is to renovate the agapanthus.
Okay.
They're a great plant that you can pull out the ground, separate up, and if you put enough depth of soil and enough nutrients back in,
We could like replant them again.
spot on.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've got to pick our timing for that. We don't want to do it at the dead of winter where they're not going to grow, and we don't want to do it in the
Okay.
heat of summer where it's going to burn them.
So it has to be an autumn or a spring transplanting surgery
The
for
best
agapanthus.
time for them. Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously in spring we're going to get more growth out of them then too. We might forgo a year of flower or something like that, but
That's
so
not the
what?
end of the
It's not.
world. So they are salvageable.
They are salvageable.
Now, if I
They
was to transplant them, do I need to give them like a really good trim back and pull off all this thatchy?
Most definitely.
Weird
all
stuff.
this dead stuff that's on here, so all these burnt leaves, that sort of thing, they're only going to create fungal problems.
Okay.
So we don't want to generate more fungal problems or make any more trouble for them than what they've
Like
already
these
got.
spotty leaves, like we already have.
You got it. They're
Right.
only going to make more problem for it. So when we transplant it, you'd separate these bulbs out and you would plant them back as more of a single line rather than this mass planting where they're all dense. And we might even halve the quantity of them in this garden.
They multiply.
They do.
They
So
multiply.
they
I'm
keep
sure
coming back.
10 years ago the owner didn't plant this many.
I wouldn't suggest so. I would have thought they'd have planted 1/3 of the quantity that's in here now.
All right, so it's either lights out and
Yep.
do something different,
Yep.
or it's transplant them up at the right time of year, and so you can reuse and refurbish your agapanthus bed.
You can.
Fantastic.
What are you talking about? Stairs.
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 Get a little bit of shirt rustle.
Oh yeah. My name's not Russell, by the way. Get that going in bloopers.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be messy by the end of this day. Can I get a bloopers reel off you for Christmas as my Chrissy present?
That's a great Christmas present.
That would be a brilliant
I
Christmas
like your
present.
bloopers reel for my Christmas present.
Yeah.
Can you just forward it
It's
to
gonna
me?
be
Just forward
bad.
it. Oh, that turned
You
out
wrote a book. Woo! Okay, alcohol. Next time on the Reno Show, Rowan will answer the question, how close to the ground can you build your deck? leading property analyst John is helping you buy the right property to renovate, and I'm hanging out with Beaumont Tiles to help you get to know your retro vintage style. Our expert gardener Aaron is here to help us with our pruning, and I'm going to be giving you 4 ways that you can save money on labour during your renovation. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel to receive weekly renovation and lifestyle inspiration. Hey guys, have you heard about the amazing new renovation app? It is the Rapid RenoMate app for your phone, for iPhones and Androids, and it has just taken renovation to a new level of ease. It can track everything from your timelines to your budget, to your paint colours, your supplies and your tradies. It has truly transformed, streamlined and made the renovation process so much easier. If you'd love to get your free app right now, click the link below and download it immediately to your iOS or your Android device. Happy renovating!